Well, hello, beautifuls. Hello, and Happy New Year. Welcome to the Gifted Table. I am Dr. Melanie Harris, and I'm so excited that you are here joining me today. This is the first Monday of 2023, and we're live. We are going live. I really wanted this Monday to be very special, and so Chris and I, you met Chris last week. We decided that today we will be live. And going into this new year, I'm really hoping to expand the gifted table and to do a lot of things differently with sprinkling in some live, with also some recorded episodes. But today, starting off 2023, looking forward, what goals have you set? Have you done some resolutions? Are you resolving to do some things? I had a really amazing church service yesterday. And yesterday, the focus was about not looking back into your past, but looking towards your future, what's in front of you. And so today, I am so excited to talk about a little bit of the past, but how it's propelling into the future. And our subject today is why Black women in education have to lead differently. Believe it or not, we do. And women of color in general, whether you're Latina, whether you're Asian American, Native American, women of color, we have to lead differently in whatever settings we're in. And so today I am so excited to be joined by one of my really great girlfriends, Mrs. Khaleelah Lewis Wilkins, has pulled her seat up to the table. Welcome to the table, Khaleelah.
Hey now. Happy to be at the table.
There she is. There she is. So Khaleelah and I, we worked in an organization previously together. But what's so crazy is we never worked together. Like we were never on the same school site together, but we had a connection through the school site. Look at my bottle of water all in the camera. I'm sorry, y'all. Y'all need to know what I'm drinking. Oops, sorry about that. Keeping it real. But she is one of the most amazing and stealth-like leaders that I know. And I had to bring her to the table, and she accepted the invitation to come live. So Khaleelah, say hello to the table. Thanks for scooting your chair real close. And everyone here, scoot your chair up. I just saw Dana Smith Lacey. Hey, Dana, thank you for joining us today.
Well, hello, everyone. Again, my name is Khaleelah Lewis Wilkins. I am extremely excited. I'm finally glad I got an invite to be on the show. I've been hearing about all the great things, and I was just taken back when she invited me to the table. So I'm scooping myself up. I'm here. I'm ready to be a part of today's show. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Why are you trying to act shady already? You know I told you you were going to be on here. We're not going to even go there today. We're not going to even go there. But you're here. But you're here. And so we're just going to talk about our experiences today. We're going to have a little journey through our profession, going from when we were teachers to where we are now in our journey. And Khaleelah is now in her second year as a site principal, an elementary school principal, and she's at her second site. So we're going to talk about being a site principal for 2 years and at your second site. What led to that? Okay. So that's what we're going to do here at the table. So as everyone know, for me, promoting women and just really sharing our experiences, having this platform where we can just be truly authentic, networking in the community and really creating a community of unity. And if you don't know, there are so many women in education. As you know, education is filled with mostly females. But when you start looking at how women are promoting in education, be it in simply in their departments for whatever grade level or curriculum they're teaching, or going into coaching, going into a teacher on special assignment, to assistant principal, a coordinator, or things like that in the district, you start to see sometimes in some districts how women may have had all that experience, but they may not be promoted as quickly as sometimes men. Or you will find that women of color or Black women are not always promoted as quickly. Again, this is specific to sometimes regions, sometimes states, sometimes districts, but we're only here to talk about our experience. And women who are rocking at C-suite and other industries, they're chiefs of this, they are even fewer. So Khaleelah, let's talk about our journey. How long have you been in education?
This, I believe, is my 17th year. Yeah,
17 years. You are
17 years.
pushing almost 2 decades, my friend.
I know it's crazy to think back, but yeah, I started
Now,
17 years
is
ago.
education something you've always wanted to do? Has this always been like your dream, just to work with the babies and to work with those teachers and work with those other administrators?
No. The short answer is no. I never wanted to be a teacher. I'm the oldest of 11, and so people would tell me a lot of times, "Oh, you should be a teacher. You should be a teacher." And I was like, "No, I don't like kids. I don't, I don't want to be around kids. I don't want to be around those people." But slowly and surely, all of the jobs that I had that led up to education always involved kids. So I didn't have a um, quote unquote real job. I never worked retail. I always have worked with kids from working parks and recreation to being an assistant teacher for a child development center to running an after school program through a grant funded program for the county, which
Wow.
led me kind of into education. I really only went into education because I was going to be a mom and I needed a job that had, quote unquote, good
Mhm.
hours,
Yeah.
a Monday to Friday schedule, the weekends off,
Mhm.
holidays and such. And so that's kind of what led me into teaching. A friend of mine had joined a program and said, "Oh, you should try this out." And that's what led me to this profession.
And you don't even like kids. I'm just kidding. Yeah, everything you did involved children.
Yes.
Were you a Sunday school teacher too?
You know what? I wasn't a Sunday school teacher, but I did actually have a little program at the church where I was teaching step to kids and tutoring kids on Saturdays and such. So I had a class, but I wasn't necessarily the Sunday school teacher.
So in all of these positions you've had leading up to education, you had to lead, right? You had to be a leader. You had to show some type of leadership. You had to have some structure. You had to have some type of guide for what you wanted to have an outcome for those who you were working with. So let's talk a little bit about that. Once you got into education, and for me, and I've shared on TGT that education was not my career of choice. I kind of just fell into education because of a friend of mine as well. And over 2 decades later, I'm still here. And so when you think about working in a teaching position, you always have to have outcomes, you have to have lessons, all those things. When you first got into it, how were you received as a new educator?
And I think that I was blessed in that when I started teaching, I was a student teacher at the school I became a teacher at. One of the challenges that I had was that I looked very young, and because I started in middle school, and I'm tiny, so you can do the math. People just assume that I was a student there, so I got to see the ugly side of professionalism, and how educators can treat children based on status. But as far as being received, I believe I was received well because I ended up working at a school site that was diverse. And so I wasn't the first African American teacher on that campus. We had African Americans in leadership on that campus, and I felt like it was a comfortable place to be, and that you got to see people from different walks of life and experience the cultures that they brought to the school. And we really operated as a family, so to speak. And it's one of the more profound experiences that I've had in really understanding that we are all just human beings at the end of the day, and we all want what's best for our families and for our students.
And what would you say are some of the lessons that you learned from some of those leaders when you first became a teacher, seeing that you saw people who looked like you, whether if it was a man or a woman, and they're in a leadership position? My experience was very similar. My first principal was an African American male, and there were a lot of it was a very diverse campus as well, and there were a lot of people of color just leading and doing great things for students. And like you, because I'm a little height challenged as well, and was a lot more petite thin. I was, kind of like, do you work here? And it was only because I wore heels all the time, still do. Shout out to those who like to lead with the heel group. That's, the group, you part of that crew.
I do love a stiletto, I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah, teaching in heels, and that's actually one of my friends' tags, teaching in heels. But because of that, I did learn a lot. So going into education as a Black woman and seeing a diverse and African American leaders, what was like your impression of how to lead in that environment, in that space?
So I have to say that my experience was different in that I did not grow up around many African Americans, and I did not have an African American teacher, administrator, leader in my presence in the schools that I attended until I got to college. I had my first African American professor my junior year of college, and that really changed everything for me. Outside of church, I just really did not see people of African American descent leading, especially in a school environment. So when I was hired by an African American principal at the time, I think it was interesting in that I was a student teacher, so I didn't plan on working at that particular school site, but I was able to kind of observe from the background um, and watch her lead and watch others lead. It was awesome in that one of the people who was on the site just, God works in mysterious ways. And so he was actually the brother of a young lady I grew up with in the church. So that was a familiar face. Yes, a
Wow.
familiar face. And so I felt like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. But I watched him lead. I watched others around me and how they cared for the kids, how they spoke to the kids, how they spoke life into the students, and mothered them and just nurtured them in ways I had not experienced, nor had I observed prior to that. And I felt like I could do this.
Yeah.
I could do this because I saw people as an example. And what I would get from the kids is, why are you a teacher? Why do you want to be a teacher? And my response to that was, because I didn't see people who looked like me. And even to this day, I see it now where I work in my current organization. But because I was so used to being the one African American in the room, or one of two, I think there were two on my track team, it was small. I still have this like shock and awe when I see African Americans in leadership, because it is not something that I saw, all the time. And so I'm always amazed by it.
That is incredible. I would have never known that was part of your story and part of your journey, but I understand how, I mean, because when I say she goes hard in the paint for kids, this lady goes hard for children. She has the heart and keeps them at the center of everything that she does. And now I see, and I'm listening to how watching leaders who look like you, observing that for the first time, connecting with your first teacher, your junior year of college. So you were 2 years in, 2 years in, third year. See, you're, oh my gosh. I mean, that's just, it just talks about our experiences and how that has impacted you or even strengthened who you already were. And as you develop and continue to develop, it really says a lot about why you are so just deeply connected to making sure that children succeed, your staff succeed, and people feel connected to one another. And that's one of the many things that I admire about you. So you've been teaching, you taught for several years, and then you began to progress. What would you say was your first leadership role outside of the classroom? And why did you even go for that position?
Um, that's funny. So a lot of the leadership positions I have gravitated towards, someone recruited me for it. I didn't
Because you
set out
that
to
chick.
be a
Because
leader.
you just that chick.
So,
People want your work. They want
it started
they
off
want to
with,
work with you.
yeah, it started off with being the department chair, whether it's because I was the youngest one in the group or they saw the leadership or both, but they said, it's your turn. So I've been a department chair. I've been the SST coordinator. I was chosen to run the AVID program after our school site had lost its accreditation
Mhm.
through AVID. And so all of those, I was kind of cherry picked to do those things, even including being a director in the Teachers Association. I was
Wow.
asked to do that work. So I was always just like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, because I felt like I was helping. I
Mhm.
didn't see it as leadership. I just felt like it was something more I could do to support, even including running the dance team that I did at that school site for 10 years. It was, you see a need, you see a void, and so you try to plug the hole and fix it. And if that means that you have to dedicate a little bit more of your time to make sure that you're providing equitable experiences for students, then you just do that work.
You're like Nike. You just do it.
Sometimes, yeah,
You are.
my husband would say, you need to stop doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. You just do it. But because there's not a lot of people that say, "Oh, I see the need, let me fill it." And sometimes with that, I struggle with having that connection with people and will people see those things in you with that fine line to when people start to take advantage because they know that you will say yes and they know that when you step up to do something you're going to give it your all, that you're going to lead with integrity, that you're going to lead with your heart. And even if you stumble and fall, you're not so in the space where no one can tell me anything, but you reach out to others and you look for support, you look for correction and see how can I do it better the next time. And I just know that's who you are. So when you and I first really started connecting, I believe you were working as one of the professional development specialists in our last organization where we worked, and you would just you know, go to schools and help. And then suddenly you were out of PD and you were working in administration. What was that transition like for you?
So I would say that I really started to feel the impact of being the African American in the room when I rose to professional development. I hate to say rose because I also was recruited, right?
Yeah.
And I remember fellow members, African American members within that organization telling me, "Hey, be careful. You are I think I was the only African American at that time, or maybe one of two. And they said, just, hey, what you had at your previous site is a good thing, but it doesn't exist everywhere. So just keep your
Mhm.
eye, stay woke.
Stay woke.
Keep your eyes
Don't
and ears
sleep.
open. And I didn't know what that meant until I was put in situations where
Mhm.
I started to hear things like, um, she's aggressive. Yeah, and that
Not the A
always
word.
caught me off guard.
Yeah.
Or that when I would be presenting with my team members or
Mhm.
male team members who were of a different nationality
Mhm.
than myself, they would get the floor, even though I knew more than
Wow.
that counterpart. And I would get
Mhm.
lots of questions, but they would take what this counterpart was saying as fact. And
Wow.
that was always like disconcerting. And when I was bringing questions about equity way before equity was brought into the mainstream lens, and asking about what are we doing for our students? How are we supporting them from cradle to graduation? How are we making sure and ensuring that they are able to not only graduate from this organization successfully, but have the tools in order to pursue a career or a higher academia pathway, right? And so I had just kind of reached the ceiling where I felt like everything I was doing was being questioned. Um, it was either being sidelined, I was being asked to do more, go above and beyond, when I was watching my other counterparts within my department not even having to work as hard as I did. And as a part of my departure, I remember one of my team members saying, "Oh my gosh, she's leaving. We're gonna have to have two people replace her."
Get out.
Because that, no, I promise you, that is what was said. And that was one of those like, oh, wow, okay. So you knew that I was capable of doing this work, but you took advantage of it. And it wasn't until I said,
Mm.
okay, I'd like to try my hand in something else. And even still, I was recruited for that position when I
Right.
became an academic administrator. So again, all these positions I gravitated towards was because someone said, "Oh, I think you would be really good at this.
Right.
You should try this out." You know.
It's so common, and which is so sad to say, that as Black women, I often talk to many of my friends who are African American women in leadership, and that is the common thread. We have to work just as hard or harder. We have to prove ourselves two times over for the same amount of work that one person might be doing. And it becomes so challenging when you know you're doing not the same work, but more work, sometimes more efficient work, more strategic work, um, more work that will promote your organization or whatever initiatives you have going on. And yet, if one thing goes wrong, if one thing you do goes sour, that's the only thing that they remember. And then all of a sudden, your leadership is questioned. Maybe that's
Mhm.
just my experience. I don't know.
Well, I've
But
often heard you're only as good as your last decision.
child, and that's in everything that you do, right? That's in
Yeah.
everything that you do. But it's so true. And even when I was in other positions, I would feel, right? Because it's all about your feelings. I would feel that I was bringing things to the table, making suggestions, recommendations, things like that. They weren't really heard until someone else said it who
Hmm.
did not look like me, or who perhaps was a woman, but not a woman who looked like me,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
so you start to go, oh, okay. To the point where, like, personally, I was like, well, I'm just going to sit here and be quiet and just see what happens. Because when you start getting, oh, she's aggressive, or she's bossy, or she's controlling, or that, well, I am the leader of a of a school, or I am tasked with doing this. And people don't realize when you're running a school, it's like you're running your own little city. It's like you're
Mhm.
running your own community. And it does take a team to do it. But when things go wrong, when things go sideways, it's no longer the name of the school, it's your name,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
so you did that position. You were an amazing AP. Oh my gosh, I remember when you were an AP. And we started having these conversations about you were ready to do something differently. You remember those conversations?
I do. I do. I
And
do
you,
because you feel it. You feel it in your spirit.
yes,
It's like
yes,
my spirit is ready to grow.
uh-huh.
We need to go on and do something else. And I
Mhm.
remember telling you, like, I don't know what it is, but I feel like there's something else.
Child, we went to work, right? You was like, listen, here's my resume. What can I do? Look at this resume. And you put that thing together. And I was like, what? Why she got a dissertation on her on her resume? I mean, it felt like a scroll. I was like, oh, look at all her stuff. I want to do this. But we tighten up that thing, right? We got that thing
Mhm.
tight. And you just like, I need to do something different. It's like you felt something was starting to move where you were,
Mhm.
right? And move in a way that wasn't going to be beneficial to you, right? Or it wasn't going to
Yes.
promote you to where you needed to go. I think
Well,
sometimes
and
we get
I
too,
also felt
mm,
that it was one of those things where you stated earlier, having to work twice as hard.
mm-hmm,
So I was watching myself almost on the verge of a stroke.
mm,
And I mean that with all sincerity, working to try to repair a school site that really was abandoned by the district office
mm,
and was looking for people like myself who would just, burn that midnight oil to try to repair the things instead of having some other, I won't say political, but policy and systematic changes that would
mm-hmm,
have really transformed the dynamic
mm-hmm,
of that school site. So it was really going to be to my detriment. And should I have had the stroke or
mm,
had an ailment, um, I would have been the one to be blamed, right? Oh, she worked too hard. That would
right.
have been the conclusion of that. Instead
Mm-hmm.
of me saying, okay, enough is enough. I had to really choose my family at that point rather than stay in something that was really not conducive for my well-being.
Not only choosing your family, but choosing yourself, right? Choosing
Mhm.
yourself. And how many women do we know have sacrificed their health, right? Their families for the sake of, I got to do the job and I have to do
Mhm.
it right because everyone's looking at me, everyone's coming to me. It's expected of me. And yes, it's expected of me. But man, people don't realize, especially when you're a principal, how lonely that position can be. Even when you're
Mhm.
surrounded by a lot of people, that chair can be very lonely. And it's different too from being an assistant principal to being a principal. How was
Mhm.
that transition for you?
I had a good mentor who told me, the buck is going to stop with you. Because I was telling him, I think I could do that job. I could be a principal. And he said, well, here's the difference. When you're the principal, that's it. It all stops with you. So whether you knew about it or you didn't know about it, you're going to be the one that's questioned about it at the end of the day. So that was a lot to take in. And then deciding to leave my organization and join a brand new organization with whom
Yes.
I had no relation, no real understanding of what I was walking into. I lost all of my social capital as a result of that. So I didn't have my reputation to precede me. And so it was hard. It was hard because I really felt that. And I became a brand new principal during COVID. So you have to deal with the societal fears, the political fears, and all of those other things that weren't typically a part of the school dynamic or school culture, but were playing out at that time.
And when you did transition to your new organization as a new principal during a COVID or during a pandemic, and to top it all off, people, were you the first African American principal they ever had at that school?
Yes. And the second one in the district, in the history
And,
of the district.
and how old would you say that district may be?
Well,
Is it more than
it's
10 years
old.
old?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So now there's that. And that is a dynamic that sometimes people don't understand. Oh, well, you became a principal. Oh, you're a female principal at our school. And yes, you know, oh, you're the first African American principal. But what did you follow, right? You
Yeah,
followed it.
that's not how my experience went. See, I didn't know that. I didn't know I was the first. Okay.
Child, did you go in
I
like
didn't, it
this?
was just one of those things that, I just assumed because the organization in the district that I had left, I had already been in such diversity. I just assumed it, existed everywhere. Heck, it's
Child.
Southern California. There's lots of, you know, diversity
In
within
the Inland
just
Empire, that's very
right within
diverse,
this
right?
region. So I just assumed that there had to be other, women, people of color, and such. It was not until I went to the first managers meeting and I
Uh-huh.
looked around the room and I was a party of one.
The
And
oneness has struck again.
yes, the party of one. And so I did not know that. And that was like red flag, red flag, red flag,
Yes.
because I had to really think about, well, just having had that experience before, I know that I am up against the implicit biases that
Oh,
exist in
yes.
someone else's mind
Mm-hmm.
prior to me even arriving, prior to me
Mm-hmm.
even speaking, right?
Yeah.
I have to go up against that and either
Yeah.
break that myth or
Right.
misconception
Mm-hmm.
or I validate it, right? But I don't even
Mm-hmm.
know what the success criteria is for that.
Wow.
So yeah, it
That
was one of those. And then when I'm, going through the pages, like, wait, I'm still looking for somebody. Then I actually met the first one.
wow.
And so she told me, no, boo, you're number two.
And was she still the principal? Was she still the
No,
principal?
she was retired.
She retired out, huh? She was like,
She retired, but her story. So I'd have to say, the differences in our stories is that she taught in that district.
yeah.
She recruited
She had
within.
the social equity.
She had the social equity, the social capital, and I
Yes.
was brand new.
Yeah.
So I could even say that my experience was even compounded as a party of one
Yeah.
because of the way in which I entered that space.
And when you enter that space and started to experience the school, you have to learn your staff. Were there any, because I don't want to assume, but were there any micro or macroaggressions that you experienced, either from your colleagues, from your staff, from parents? I'm sorry,
Uh,
she gave me the side eye.
woo! Yes, yes, and yes, and yes, and yes, and yes.
And how
I,
does that impact you? How does that impact you when you're coming into that space, knowing your oneness, right? Knowing the buck stops with you, knowing all eyes on you, you're new to this new district, you're new to this organization. How did that impact you?
well, I will have to tell you, in all honesty, like I have PTSD from that experience, and that is
Mm-hmm.
a legitimate
Mm-hmm.
thing. It felt like I was being hit with a tidal wave and then trying to get back up and get hit again because again, the macro aggressions and the microaggressions, for example, people. telling you, oh, you're just looking out for the Black kids.
Oh, you
And
heard
it's
that
like,
too?
no, this is a Title I school. I'm just looking at the subgroups and what can we do for them. You're just coming in here trying to tell us what to do. I don't appreciate your tone. Um, nope, just trying to lead a school. Well, why is she walking through our classrooms? She's looking for something. Nope,
Mhm.
that's what principals are supposed to do.
Right,
Ensure that learning is taking place,
right.
to parents um, calling the district office because I gave their child lunch detention for,
Oh, wow.
defacing the campus, which is a suspendable offense. But uh, uh, the atrocities, the things that I dealt with, it was like a revolving door. Like, what's coming up next?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was a lot. I was afraid to open my emails on Sunday evenings because there was always something that was jumping out at me. And I was asking for the support. This was something that I had brought to their attention and said, I would really hope that when you are brought concerns that you're able to vet through them and see which
Yeah.
of these are just examples of people's internal fears that really
Mm-hmm.
aren't actualized, that are based on implicit bias. Um, and what can you do to support me in this experience? Because I know I'm aware of the fact that I'm Black. Every time I walk in a room, I'm aware of the
Yes.
fact that I'm Black. I'm aware of the fact that people are looking at me and watching me under a microscope,
Mm-hmm.
and that I have to be a stereotype breaker,
Yes.
right? So that I can open doors. It's almost like that Obama effect. I have to open doors for the
Mm-hmm.
next person who may be coming behind me. Um,
Absolutely.
and so you could see that people were trying to get under my skin to see if I would respond as the angry Black woman so that they
Mm-hmm.
could then use that
Mm-hmm.
as a
Reason.
tool
Yes.
or reasoning. And I wouldn't break, even killed, just all the time. And it was to the point where people go, "You're so calm."
Mm-hmm.
But I would say, thank you. I don't have any other choice but to be,
Yeah.
right? And that's heavy. It's that, what
That's
do they call,
very
the
heavy.
invisible tax? It's the invisible
Yes.
tax.
That's very heavy. And people don't realize, I mean, I have I haven't had that experience, but I've been in the situation to where you have to remain calm, but internally you don't realize how much that's hurting your body,
Hmm.
right? How much
Hmm.
that's stressing out your body because in your mind you're like, I'm not giving you any power. You're not going to have any control over how I respond or how I react. So I am going to walk this line with grace and integrity. But even when doing that, when you get in your car, right? When you're driving home, when you get to the house, just the stress on your body, this how tight you are in your shoulders, how that affects your stomach, right? Your gut. You know, you get that gut feeling. We talk about that gut feeling when it's time to do something differently. It also affects you internally, right? It's such an unshakable feeling to know that still in 2023, where we are now, because we just got out of 2022, that those are the experiences that women in leadership and education are still having. And what do we need to do to break that? So let's talk a little bit about the support that you have. Did you feel supported in that organization? And if not, why?
I think it was a lot of gaslighting and a lot of public service announcements, if you will, but there
Not the
wasn't really,
PSAs.
yeah, there wasn't a lot of support. They did offer the first African American principal there to meet with me, and we did talk throughout the year. But even she saw the experience that I was having and was like,
Mhm.
"Oh my gosh, this is crazy,"
Yeah.
um, because she was disappointed in the way in which the district at that time was handling things. And I have to mention the fact that the people that were in leadership, they had not been in leadership for that long.
Mm-hmm.
Not only was I new, but the whole leadership team at the district
Wow.
office, for the most part, was new in their roles too.
Oh,
So
wow.
we were all learning together. And so systems
Mm-hmm.
had not been built. But when it all was said and done, things that, because they weren't really pushed down the appropriate way, I was having to ask a lot of
Mm-hmm.
questions to
Mm-hmm.
things that should have been directly given to me. It was
Wow.
like uh, trying to read between the lines, trying to figure out what is it that I'm supposed to be doing. And I felt time after time I was being set up for failure.
Wow.
I can't tell you. I mean, so many times where I was like, well, wow, how come so and so knew this, but I didn't
But
know
you
this,
did.
and I'm
Yeah.
new.
Right.
It was like, oh, we're all wearing red today, and I
Mm-hmm.
come in yellow. When was that memo sent out?
Right.
Okay. It was a
Oh
lot,
my
a
God.
lot of that. And oh, well, you should just know this or know that. Well, even just learning processes, just forget
Mm-hmm.
the fact that I'm African American. Remember
Right.
the
Just
fact
the
that I'm
process.
brand new
Right.
to this culture, brand new in this role, and I'm having to navigate all of those spaces.
It's like, can I get some onboarding, please? Can,
Yeah, that did not happen, and I asked for that. That did not happen, and I really did. Like, come on, because you know me, I
yeah.
really want to do well with whatever
Mm-hmm.
I encounter or set
Mm-hmm.
out to do. And if
Yeah.
that means having to read a little bit more or have a conversation or
Just give
two,
it to
I'm
me.
just give it to me.
Yeah.
Just let me know. Just give me the
Mm-hmm.
roadmap. What do I need to do? And
Yeah.
that was not happening.
No GPS for you.
None. In
None.
fact, drove into the ditch several times. I know how to
No,
change a
no
spare
ways. There
tire,
were no
okay?
ways for you. You were navigating by the North Star.
Right. Thank God I had that, what is it, Thomas Rand McNally
Yeah.
map. And those are
Not
my
the Thomas
mentors.
guy.
Yes, the Thomas Guide, and those are my mentors, people outside of the
Yeah.
organization who I was constantly reaching out to and saying, "Hey, this happened. How should I
Mm-hmm.
be responding to it? Is
Yeah.
this normal?" And
Right.
even my mentors were saying, "It's time to go.
It's time to go.
Time
It's
to
time to
go.
go.
It's
And
time to
and
go."
you not and then last year we did an episode here. One of the first episodes we did on the gifted table was about breaking through the glass ceiling. And I think we have a clip from that from Stephanie Walton. Let's take a listen.
Walk away.
I'm sorry. Are you talking about step away from the table?
Be ready. Always be ready to step away. If you are not getting what you need and what you want in any organization, always be ready to step away and know your worth and go somewhere else. I think being fearless is critical to breaking any glass ceiling. And if you can't break it where you are, go find the place that will let you break it there. So,
And there we have it, right?
Mhm.
And that's what both you and I have had to do in the last year. Both of us had to do that. And I don't know if you've started reading or if you have a copy of Michelle Obama's new book, Into the Light. I think that's what it's called. So shameful. I should know the title. But there's something that she wrote in there about fear becoming your fuel, and how that fear needs to be like rocket fuel to just project you to the next thing that you need to do. Your fear shouldn't be that thing that holds you back. It should be that instrument that, I mean, I just think of like being your slingshot, and it's you being stretched by that fear. And when you get to that very last point of resistance, you're just going to take off and let that be your takeoff. So what has been your take off from your transition that you've done that's fueled you to step away from that last table, and now you're working in a different organization?
Yeah, so to go back, this was the first time that I had chosen myself by leaving my previous district. I never, ever quit a job in my entire life until then. And really choosing myself and saying, I don't even care what I will flip burgers because I am not going back to this experience. When you talk about the physicality of the trauma that I experienced,
Yeah,
from the
that's what it was.
intestinal issues, the gut
Yeah.
issues, I had all of that happening. And it was on a daily basis, feeling like you have 20 pounds of weight on your chest. So the moment that I decided I'm done was a moment of release. And I had a different lease on life.
Yes.
That I just think whatever I choose to do after this, I knew that God was not going to take me in the wrong direction. I knew he had me go through that experience for a reason. And I am grateful because I learned a lot. But I learned what my self-worth was
Yes.
through that experience. I
Come on
didn't
now.
really, not that I didn't know, but I didn't have a great understanding. But when I started looking around and I'm like, wait a second, I'm one of the most educated people here. I know I'm not crazy,
Yeah.
and just saying I can do better than this. And if it's time for me to go, it's time for me to go. And Lord, I'm about to step out on faith. If you just have faith the size of a mustard seed,
Teeny tiny mustard seed.
and I said, okay, I'm about to take the leap. And so I did, and I'm so thankful that I did. My swagger was different. My
Hey,
walk was different.
come on,
Hey, you
heels.
want to do that? That's fine. Because guess what? You're not going to realize the impact that I had on this site until I am gone. You're not going
Absolutely.
to realize that what these little seeds that I was planting and dropping until I'm gone, until it's in your face. I
Yes.
realized at the end that I really, I felt like I was hired as a reaction to parents who were asking for diversity, but they
Yeah.
really did not have the desire to have the diversity.
They didn't want the
So that's
change.
different. They didn't want
No.
the change. They
No.
wanted things to reset and be the same way as they were.
Right.
And now I'm blessed to be in an organization where I'm seeing people of color in leadership positions, leading again and leading top positions, educated women all
Yeah.
around me, just people of excellence,
Yeah.
people who pray, people who just want to love on the kids. They want to do what's right for the kids. And the first question that they ask is, how can I help you? How can I be of support to you? I
Yeah.
can't tell you when I went through the onboarding experience.
Well, I'm sorry, you
And
did what? You went onboarding. You got
yes,
onboarding?
girl. Yes, girl. I read the email like, somebody's gonna help me, right? And very strategic
Yes.
moves, and it was outlined, and it was explicit. It was
Yeah.
there for you to digest. But each person who walked through the room for onboarding, they told their story.
I love it.
They told their story and why they were there. And I thought to myself, this is an organization I want to be a part of, because each of these people have joined this organization and are where they are in their
Yes.
arc of life, if you will, because of their story. And I can attach to that story and want to do what's best for kids because they want to do what's best for kids. I can follow this leadership. And I
Yeah.
just landed at a school site where they wanted a leader and I wanted to lead. And the
They
things
didn't
that
want a quota. They just didn't want a quota.
they didn't want a quota, they wanted a leader. And I could just be me, my quirky, crazy self. I could just be me. I breathe differently. I smile differently. I hug differently. I love differently.
Yes. Yes. It's
I'm
okay.
allowed to be in that space.
It's so important. It's so
I'm
important.
allowed to be me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because I'm the token Black girl.
Right.
It's because they want me.
Because you're worthy.
I'm worthy and thankful for it. And so because of that, I give my all.
Yeah. And I'm so excited for you, friend. I am so excited for you. And see, people, this is what you don't see when you're just looking at titles and when you're just looking on the outside. And this is why the gifted table is so important. So we can have these authentic, real conversations about what's affecting us, what motivates us, what leads us, what impacts us, and what causes us to change. And there's a really great quote that's been around for years that says, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. And I must say that there are things that we have experienced that has both challenged us and changed us for the better. And friend, not that you needed anything to challenge you, but the change that you see in yourself is just going to propel you to the next level. And this is why women need to support one another. Women need to uplift one another. Women need to reach out to one another. Women need to reach down to one another to pull each other up. We have to. And women cannot be afraid to reach up, to have someone to help them along the way. And so with that, I say thank you so much for being here. I'm so thankful that you took the time to join the table. And before we go, I have to ask you, now that you're in this new space where you're feeling empowered, you're feeling supported, you just feeling like I'm going to lead the way I was supposed to lead, what is it that you need right now, and what is it that you want?
That's deep. What do I need? I need more opportunities to learn and see what those next steps might be for me outside of this role. What do I want? I want there to be, I want, and I believe that there should be spaces of equity that perpetuate opportunities for all kids, for all women. So for me, that means working with people that it's not my job to train you about Black culture. It's my job to learn about someone else's culture who is just as disenfranchised, who is experiencing the same types of challenges and change, and know their story so I can support them. And then we support each other. It's about taking what you know and then spreading it amongst the people that you work with or that you encounter so that we really can strengthen these pathways for the people that are coming behind us.
And what I hear you saying is something that I'm hoping that with building networks, that we're creating a community of unity that doesn't tolerate one another, but embrace one another and accept one another, learn from one another, and cherish each other. We're going to make 2023 an amazing year. I cannot wait to hear how this school year ends for you. And so we can do a reflection of what was that June 2022 to what is this June 2023. It's going to be amazing. And I look forward to having that conversation. Hey, right? We may have to go do some more retail therapy. Oh, I'm sorry. I said that live. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here, Mrs. Khaleelah Lewis Wilkins, who is also working on her doctorate right now and pushing through. I'm so proud of you, friend.
Thank you.
Sky's the limit.
Thank you for having me.
Sky's the limit. And beyond the sky, honey, beyond that. Thank you all for being here today on the Gifted Table. I'm so appreciative. Thank you for pulling up your seat, for taking your seat, for staying with us today. Please be sure to like this video, go back to the YouTube, like it, and share this experience. Who do you know? What woman do you know who may be struggling with leadership, struggling in being connected, struggling with feeling supported? and she may need to decide, I need a different table. Share this link with her, share it with her. And as always, everyone, stay grounded, innovative, fierce, transparent every day. In other words, stay gifted. I'll see you next time.